Have you ever woken up one morning and realized that the silence in your life has gotten louder? Not dramatic, not chaotic, just empty. Everyone else looks like they belong somewhere. They have their circles, their routines, their inside jokes. They're tagged in photos, invited to dinners, surrounded by people who choose them. And then there's you. The one who pours your heart out quietly, the one who listens deeply, the one who loves gently, yet somehow ends up feeling like a background character in your own story. You scroll through your feed and feel this faint ache, this whisper that says, "Why is connection so natural for everyone except me?" You're not angry, just tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending you don't notice the silence. Tired of wondering if maybe, just maybe, there's something wrong with you. You pray, you wait, but the words feel heavy, and heaven feels quiet. And yet, what if the quiet place you're standing in isn't punishment, but invitation? What if the silence isn't absence, but space? Space God is clearing so He can finally do something in you that the noise could never allow. Today, we're going deeper into 5 reasons God allows seasons of loneliness, and why this valley you're in may actually be the doorway to the most transformative part of your faith. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. And this season, no matter how heavy, is not empty. Let's walk through it together. Number 1, God uses loneliness to silence the world so you can finally hear Him. Loneliness always feels like rejection at first, like everyone else got chosen and somehow you slipped through the cracks. You see families laughing around tables, friends traveling together, couples holding hands, and something deep inside you asks, "What's wrong with me that no one picks me?" But the truth is, sometimes God removes the wrong voices so you can finally hear the only voice that matters. Because when life is crowded, when every moment is filled with noise, you don't realize how little space you've left for Him. Plans fall through, people drift, rhythms change, and suddenly the silence that feels like abandonment becomes the only environment where God can whisper things He couldn't say in the noise. He says, "I'm not punishing you. I'm positioning you where you can finally hear me." Even Jesus withdrew into lonely places to pray, not because He lacked community, but because intimacy requires quiet, revelation requires stillness, and healing often requires solitude. If Jesus embraced lonely places, maybe we shouldn't fear them either. 2, loneliness breaks false dependencies so you can learn to rely on God. We don't realize how dependent we are on people until people are no longer there. We don't see how much we chase validation until attention stops flowing. We don't notice how much we numb pain with distraction until the distractions disappear. But loneliness, ironically, is where you meet the truth about yourself. It exposes what you've been leaning on. It reveals the places where you've trusted people more than you've trusted God. And God, in His kindness, lets those places loosen, not to leave you unsupported, but to rebuild your foundation on something unshakable. Because God never intended for you to live saying, "I can handle this by myself." He intended for you to say, "I can't, but He can." When your strength ends, His begins. When your plans collapse, His purpose rises. When your heart feels empty, His grace fills the space. Loneliness isn't God abandoning you. It's God drawing you into a dependency that sets you free. 3, loneliness prepares you for relationships that reflect God, not drain you. let's be honest. Sometimes what we call connection is really just a distraction in disguise. Sometimes what we call friendship is just a convenient arrangement. And sometimes what we call love is really an attempt to fill a void. Loneliness has a painful but powerful clarity. It shows you who reaches out and who only reaches when they need something. It shows you whose presence brings peace and whose presence steals it. It reveals who genuinely sees you and who only values the version of you that benefits them. But loneliness isn't only about seeing others more clearly. It's about seeing yourself more clearly too. In the quiet, you start noticing your patterns. You notice the wounds you've carried into connections. You notice the walls you've built and the parts of your heart you hide. This awareness becomes healing, and healing becomes preparation, because God is not trying to give you more people. He's trying to give you right people, people who sharpen you, people who restore you, people who reflect His love, not replace it. And the you that emerges from this season will no longer beg for attention or settle for connections that drain you. You'll be ready for relationships that are deep, healthy, and God-shaped. 4. Loneliness is the place where your calling is shaped and sharpened. Nobody likes the waiting room. Nobody likes being hidden. Nobody likes feeling stuck. But almost every giant of faith was shaped in obscurity before stepping into destiny. Moses wasn't called from a palace, but from years of desert silence. David wasn't chosen while standing proudly among brothers, but while forgotten with the sheep. Elijah didn't hear God in the wind, fire, or earthquake, but in a whisper, in a lonely cave. And Jesus, the Savior of the world, spent 40 days alone before stepping into His public calling. Loneliness has always been the forge of purpose. It's where motives are purified, where character is strengthened, where faith roots grow deep, where you learn to hear God's voice even when no one else is applauding. You're not being buried, you're being planted, and planted things grow. God hides you before He releases you, because the foundation must be strong enough to carry the weight of the calling. If you're in a season that feels still, quiet, or forgotten, you might be closer to your calling than you think. 5. Loneliness reminds you that this world is not your final home. There is a space in your heart that no friendship, no relationship, no amount of love or attention will ever completely satisfy. And that emptiness is not a flaw, it's a signal. It's your soul remembering that it was built for eternity. Even the happiest days here, the weddings, the laughter, the late-night talks, are only echoes of something greater. Your heart is homesick for heaven, and the God who created you is using that ache to remind you that joy is not something you chase on earth. It's something you'll be filled with forever. Jesus knew every form of loneliness you've ever felt. He knew betrayal. He knew abandonment. He knew the ache of being misunderstood. He knew the crushing silence of the cross. He felt loneliness so deeply that He cried out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" He felt separation so you would never walk through it alone. You're not alone now. You never were. Final words for the one who's listening with a heavy heart. If this message found you at the right moment, that's not an accident. That's God. He sees the quiet battles you fight. He hears the prayers whispered through tears. He knows the loneliness you don't admit to anyone. And He is closer than you feel, working in ways you cannot see, preparing things you cannot imagine. This season will not break you, it will shape you. And one day you will look back and say, that quiet valley was where God rebuilt my heart. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are deeply, deeply loved. And you are not walking this journey alone. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.